In every corner of Africa, stories breathe, tales buried in dust, whispered through firelight. You're about to hear one of them. Welcome to African Horror Stories. Chadian Folklore The Kadiak. The Ennedi Plateau in northeastern Chad is a place where time does not flow, it erodes. It is a labyrinth of monolithic sandstone arches and hidden geltas, waterholes that have remained untouched since the Sahara was a lush forest. To the outside world, it is a geological wonder. To the Tubu people who traverse its jagged veins, it is a cathedral of spirits, and at the center of its dark heart lies the Kadiak. The sun was a blistering eye in a cloudless sky as the three-vehicle convoy cut through the dust. Leading them was Malik, a guide whose face was a map of the Sahel, deep lines etched by wind and wisdom. He didn't lead for the money, he led to ensure people stayed on the paths. In the Ennedi, leaving the path isn't just a mistake, it is an invitation. Remember, Malik told the group during their final rest stop, his voice like gravel. The desert does not speak. If you hear it, you do not answer. If you see a ripple in the stone where there should be shadow, you look away. We reach the Geltada Cay by sunset, or we do not reach it at all. The tourists laughed, snapping photos of the Gothic rock formations. They didn't see the way Malik's hand trembled as he checked the seal on his canteen. They didn't notice the absence of birds. The breakdown happened at the mouth of a narrow canyon, a place the locals called the Valley of Echoes. The lead Land Rover's engine didn't just fail, it seized, as if the very oil had turned to lead. As the sun began its rapid descent, painting the sandstone in hues of blood and bruised purple, the silence of the desert began to peel away. It started as a faint humming. "Is someone's phone on?" asked Sarah, one of the researchers. Malik froze. He stood perfectly still, his head tilted toward the towering rock walls. The sound wasn't coming from a device, it was coming from the stone itself. It was the sound of a woman humming a lullaby, the exact melody Malik's mother used to sing in the village of Fada 40 years ago. "Everyone back in the cars," Malik commanded, his voice a low hiss. "Now." "But Malik, it sounds like someone is hurt," Sarah said, pointing toward a dark crevice in the canyon wall. "Listen, it's a child." From the darkness of the crevice, a voice emerged. It was small, thin, and terrified. It called out Sarah's name, not just her name, but her nickname, a name she hadn't told anyone on this trip. "Sarah, help me, it's dark." The group stood paralyzed. The voice was perfect. It had the exact cadence, the exact pitch of Sarah's younger brother, but Sarah's brother was in London, thousands of miles away. Malik knew what was happening. The Kadiak was tasting them. The Kadiak is not merely a beast of flesh, it is a predator of the senses. It possesses a specialized organ, a pair of pulsing, heat-sensitive horns that allows it to detect the bioelectrical signals of fear and memory. It doesn't just hear you, it reads the frequencies of your past. As the group watched, the solid sandstone wall began to shimmer. It looked like a heat haze, but the air was cooling. The rock was liquefying.
The Kadiak secretes a caustic, vibrational enzyme that breaks down the molecular structure of quartz and silica, turning solid stone into a viscous, jelly-like substance. Slowly, a nightmare took shape. A head emerged from the softened rock face. It was long and flat, plated in overlapping obsidian scales that looked like shards of volcanic glass. It had no eyes, only the glowing red pits of its sensory horns. But the most terrifying feature was its mouth. When it opened, it revealed rows of massive, flat, human-esque teeth, wet with a black, oily saliva. It didn't roar, it spoke. "Sarah, help me, it's dark," the creature repeated, the voice now vibrating through the very ground they stood on. "Run!" Malik bellowed, grabbing Sarah by the arm. But as they turned to flee, the ground beneath the convoy betrayed them. The Kadiak began to vibrate its entire 12-foot frame at a frequency that induced sand liquefaction. The firm desert floor turned into a swirling vortex of quicksand. The vehicles began to tilt, their tires disappearing into the earth as if the desert had opened its mouth. One of the mechanics, a man named Jean, wasn't fast enough. He stumbled, his legs sinking to the knees in seconds. The Kadiak slithered out of the wall, its body a terrifying fusion of a crocodile's power and a serpent's grace. It moved over the liquefied sand with ease, its scales acting like oars in water. Jean screamed, but his scream was cut short. The Kadiak didn't bite him, it simply placed its massive, heavy tail over him and pressed. It didn't want a quick kill, it wanted to grind. The sound of Jean's bones snapping was masked by the creature's next trick. It began to mimic Jean's scream. As Jean went under the sand, the Kadiak emitted a perfect, high-fidelity recording of his final moments, projected from its throat with such volume that the survivors had to cover their ears. It was a sonic assault designed to disorient and paralyze. Malik led the remaining 3 survivors up a steep, rocky ridge where the Kadiak's vibrations couldn't reach. They reached a high plateau overlooking a small delta, a black pool of water reflecting the stars. They were trapped. Behind them was a sheer drop. In front of them, the canyon floor was a shifting sea of predatory sand. "It can't climb the hard basalt," Malik whispered, his breath coming in ragged hasps. "But it will wait. It can wait for months. It feeds on the moisture in our breath." The night became a psychological war. The Kadiak stayed in the shadows below, but it didn't stay silent. It began a symphony of the dead. It cycled through the voices of everyone it had ever consumed in that canyon. They heard French legionnaires from the 1920s shouting orders. They heard the cries of nomadic children from centuries ago. They heard Jean's voice, now calm, asking them if they wanted some water. "Don't listen," Malik warned. "It's trying to find the frequency that makes you move. It's fishing for your soul." By 3 a.m., the temperature dropped to near freezing. The survivors were shivering, their willpower eroding. One of the tourists, driven to a breaking point by the sound of his own mother calling him from the water below, stood up. "I have to go to her," he whispered, his eyes vacant. "Stay down," Malik hissed, but the man was possessed by the Kadiak's siren song. As the man stepped toward the edge, the Kadiak revealed itself in the moonlight. Its obsidian scales shimmered with a rhythmic, pulsing light, a bioluminescent display that mimicked the flickering of a campfire. It was the ultimate lure. Malik knew they wouldn't survive the dawn. The Kadiak was growing bolder. its vibration starting to crack the basalt ledge they stood on. The magnesium, Malik remembered. He reached into his survival vest and pulled out 2 high-intensity industrial flares. The Kadiak's horns, they are its eyes. They see heat. If we overload them, we might have a window. He told the survivors to cover their eyes. Malik struck the first flare. The canyon was suddenly bathed in a violent, blinding white light. Below, the Kadiak recoiled. The sudden thermal spike was like a physical blow to its sensitive sensory pits. It let out a sound like grinding metal, a true non-mimicked cry of agony. "Now, down the back trail! Don't stop until you see the sun!" They scrambled down the jagged reverse slope of the ridge, tearing their clothes and flesh on the thorns of acacia trees. Behind them, they heard the canyon floor erupt. The Kadiak was thrashing in blind rage, liquefying everything in its path, turning the desert floor into a chaotic storm of sand and stone. They ran for 5 hours, guided only by the fading stars and Malik's instinct. When the first sliver of gold appeared on the horizon, they collapsed on a hard, salt-crusted plain. They were safe.
The Kadiak could not leave the sandstone corridors of the Ennedi. It was bound to its labyrinth. Malik looked back one last time. In the distance, the canyon they had escaped looked peaceful, but a strange phenomenon was visible in the morning light. A long, jagged line of black glass stretched out from the canyon mouth. Sand that had been heated and vibrated so intensely by the creature's escape that it had fused into a permanent trail of vitrified terror. Malik never returned to the Ennedi. He moved to the city, far from the silence of the dunes. But sometimes, when the wind howls through the narrow streets of N'Djamena, he hears a voice. It's his own voice, and it's asking him to come back to the shade. To this day, travelers in Chad are warned about the voices in the desert. Modern science might suggest it's the singing sands, a natural acoustic phenomenon caused by wind friction. But the Tubu elders know better. They know that the Kadiak is still there, merging with the walls, waiting for a name to call and a memory to steal. If you ever find yourself in the Ennedi and you hear a loved one calling your name from behind a solid rock wall, do not answer, for the Kadiak is a master of the past, and it is very, very hungry for your future. That's all for today. If you liked the video, let me know by hitting like. And if you're new here, be sure to subscribe for more. You can watch another video of mine right here. See you next time.